This is Brian Mayer, host of Hot Sauce Weekly, and you are listening to BCRN, all barbecue and grilling all the time.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
Boing. We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to. Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle. Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude.
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet or wiener.
Well, listen, Libertius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show, where we talk about only the most high-level barbecue and grilling topics currently available for discussion. If you've missed the first hour, don't worry, we are recording. You will get the first hour of the show tomorrow, early morning. You can listen along with me as we drive to the airport. You will get the second hour of the show on audio podcast on Thursdays. And we'll talk about Friday here in just a second. Still to come on this show this evening, proprietor of the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ottawa, Tennessee, and the proprietor of Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply, Steve Ray, joining us here in about 13 minutes from now. The Barbecue Central Show originating from
Palm City, USA, Cleveland.
We still say good evening. We still say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go over to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show. You can also watch on Twitter, which is twitter.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can watch the show on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. We have a new YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guy, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff? And currently 55% of you are saying yes. So right about this time in the first hour, it was switched the other way, where 45 to 46% of you were saying yes, we should, and the majority was saying no. That at some point during the first hour went to a 50-50 split, and now we have run the other direction, where the yeses appear to be starting to run away with it as we're hitting where that peak vote total usually happens during the show. But we'll see what happens here over the next segment or so. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 378, taking you back to April 1st of 2018, and not April Fool's. And it's taking you back to me tearing down the NBBQA Awards of Excellence. Only the awards, not the convention or association itself. It's helpful to a lot of folks. I know a lot of people that are members of NBBQA. They find value. Of course, back in 2018, this was an organization that was under substantially different management, different ownership, different thought about how to steer that ship when it was 2018 and with that group that was in control. Now, people that own Barbecue News are in charge of NBBQA, that being Cal and Janet Phelps. This was actually, so what you're going to hear Friday is actually a re-release from the show that happened that Tuesday. So I did the whole thing on a Tuesday, and then later, handful of days later on a Sunday, I re-released just the rant, but talked up the front side of it, allowing myself to do a bit better of a setup to the rant than I did when it happened live on the show. So if you like me and you like me doing rants, you will have to make sure that you take in the Best Moment show this coming Friday. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And by the way, I will remain, now 7 years after the fact, almost to the day, I will remain steadfast in my take on the NBBQA Awards of Excellence. It is solely a moneymaker, and that's it. You pay to enter, someone will win because they paid to enter, and that's it. And much like my naivete showed for Michelin Star Guide, perhaps I have the same level of naivete when it comes to awards of excellence or whatever anybody else would call something like this in whatever barbecue convention or whatever convention or trade association that they're involved in. It's a known way to make money. You put in an entry fee, you submit your podcast, in my case, or rub, like Doug's case, or sauce. But every time there's an entrant, there at the time in 2018, you paid $75 to enter the Barbecue Central show in contention to have Best Podcast of the Year for NBBQA Awards of Excellence. And if there was 50 entrants, you do the math. 50 times 75. I think that's like $10,000 that you just made on the podcast site. And then for sauces, and then for rubs, and then for everything else in between. Best barbecue picture, best barbecue blog, best barbecue article. All $75 a hit. So to me, it smacks of just trying to make money. In fact, this year, I think there was only one entry in Best Barbecue Podcast category. It was certainly less than 3. So you have 3 to choose from because that's all that paid. I am, as always, skeptical about these things, just me. But again, be sure to tune in to the classic rant, as John calls it. He's a good judge, by the way, of the show. And also, I would say this. I should always win Best Barbecue Podcast. I shouldn't have to enter it. As long as I'm doing it and doing it at the level that I'm doing it at, there's nobody that's even remotely close. This isn't me bragging. This isn't me puffing my chest out and saying, look at me. These are just merely the facts. Nobody is more polished. Nobody is more professional. Nobody is more well-researched. Nobody has the testicular fortitude to sit there and actually question guests the way that some of these people need to be questioned. I do it in a way that gives me answers back like this.
That's one of the most intelligent questions anybody has ever asked me.
Nobody has ever been complimented that way in any of their podcasts that are barbecue related. That's why I should always win. Until I retire and give it away, I should always win the Awards of Excellent Best Podcast every year. And if you think less, you're just wrong. We don't even have to debate it. You're just wrong. It's fine. We can still be friends. But I'm just the best. That's how it's going to be. Now, before we get to Steve Ray in just a few minutes, I have an additional follow-up. I'm sorry, let me backtrack just for 1 second. Tune in this Friday to Best Moments. Subscribe to the podcast feed by going to thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe. Also, if there is something that you want to hear from past shows or segments, email John and let him know so he can make you a show. John, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com, and he will do his best to meet your expectation. Last week, Ben from Cracks Country Cooking didn't challenge me to enunciate his last name or pronounce his last name, but I challenged myself. And I thought I was like Kazrazovich or whatever the hell it was. But I'm looking at the spelling, and I'm like, I mean, there's just no way I'm going to be able to. But I gave it the old college try. And the good news is this. Ben has sent me a YouTube video. Perhaps just a private link. However, I was able to put it in the streaming software, and we're going to play it. We're going to see if I'm right or not. We're going to see if my Kazrazovich or whatever the hell I said last week was correct. And we will all learn in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Greg, it's Ben from Cracks Country Cooking. My last name is pronounced Karaskowitz. Yep, you were close, but no cigar. I'm a brand ambassador for How to Barbecue Right and the Good Charcoal Company. I love the show and Keep up the good work. Hope to chat with you soon. Bye.
Ben
Hey,
is
Greg,
saying,
it's Ben from
all
Cracks.
right, Ben. Karaskowitz. Now, looking at it, I can see that as I'm looking at it here. Karaskowitz. Look, Ben, in all fairness, AI told me how to say your last name. There's no way I was even coming up with Karaskowitz. There's so many consonants, very few vowels, a lot of consonants back to back. I can't deal with that in my head. I'm very, very simple when it comes to, like, I'm a couple steps ahead of Dim, I believe is what the mental rating is. So to see all those letters together, and I can see wits, I guess, W-I-C-Z, wits, yeah. But it was a long shot to think that I was going to get it. But I appreciate you weighing in and giving me the actual last name, Karaskowitz. By the way, congratulations on being a How to Barbecue Right ambassador. That's a lot of product there. If you want to ever offload some of that product, I know a guy in Cleveland who would happily take some. I'm not asking. Also, Good Charcoal Company. Good for you. We're going to be talking about the Good Charcoal Company coming up here in just a second with our pal Steve Ray. Before we do that, let's talk about Big Papa Smokers. Let's celebrate with Big Papa Smokers, their 15th anniversary with the Ultimate Barbecue Essentials. No, that's not it. Now we're in April. I have this to bring you. Big Papa Smokers is celebrating 15 years of helping both Backyard Warriors and Competition Pros bring home the Grand Championship. Whether you're prepping for your next comp or just firing up the grill for spring, Big Papa's award-winning rubs like Sweet Money, Competition Brisket and Steak, Cash Cow, Cattle Prod have the bold flavors to take your barbecue to the next level. And for a limited time, they have brought back a fan favorite, Cucaracha Extra Kick you've been craving. Barbecue Central listeners and or watchers, this one's for you. Use code BBQ Central 25, all one word together, BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. Yes, sir. We love free. Now through June 30th, aka the end of June. BBQ Central at checkout. I'm sorry, BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. So that means buy all you want, includes grills, the rubs and the sauces, the Big Papa stuff. Throw it all in your cart, and then as you're checking out BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. Oh, hot damn, that's going to save you money. Now through June 30th, limited time. June will be here before you know it. We'll be talking about July guests sooner than later, believe me. You think I'm a little crazy right now? I'm not crazy. I know what I'm talking about. We're already into Q2. But let's talk to Steve Ray out of the break. Why not? Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we welcome you back. This portion of the show being brought to you by the Barbecue Diet Program. Be tired of diets that make you choose between good food and real results? You don't have to anymore, especially when you team up with our pal David McDowell over at the Barbecue School. Go to school.com, SKOOL.com/BBQ right now and take your first steps to your fitness, health, and eating barbecue all at the same time, because you can have barbecue and your dream body too, but you have to take action. It's school.com, SKOOL, school.com/barbecue. My next guest tonight here is a Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, and that's all the titles that you really need. Oh, by the way, he does own Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply and the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ooltewah, Tennessee. We welcome back our pal Steve Ray. Steve, we have a YouTube.
Initially.
I'm sorry?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Yes, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guys, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff?
Absolutely.
57% of the YouTube voting public agreeing with you, Steve, that Sam and I should be starting a separate podcast where we talk about general stuff. 43%, and I'm lying in the 43%, are saying no, we should not do that. Robert Moss thought that some of the dew would come off the leaf if we did that. Is that true?
No, y'all could talk about how often y'all talk to each other during the week, like you do on your regular show with him.
Is that annoying?
Annoying.
Yeah. Highly.
All right. Initially, sides tended towards items like bread, pickles, and your favorite, onions.
Ooh.
Coleslaw was an early favorite in North Carolina because locally grown cabbage was abundant and cheap if you didn't add mayonnaise. It wasn't very perishable. As mechanical refrigeration, air conditioning, and electric deep fryers became more common, new items as size, such as potato salad, French fries, began to appear on barbecue restaurant menus. Robert F. Moss, The History of Barbecue.
Oh, right. If that isn't a testimonial to go out and buy actually, don't go buy that book. I know Robert doesn't want to hear it, but wait through the end of the year until we get through all the sides. Then go buy the goddamn book and then stick it as reference to check back later.
Everything is in there, Greg.
He's the best.
Everything is in there. He's unbelievable. He's my favorite.
Last week, we had a upstart fella by the name of Matt Osman, owner of Blinky's Offset Barbecue Pit, who appears that he might be venturing into the barbecue brick and mortar game, but then again, might not be, allowing himself some hedge there, but it's completely unrelated to the topic we're talking about here this evening. He was talking about how he was taking part in the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply rib contest that was put on now a couple weeks ago or 2 weekends ago, whatever you want to call it. We went through a lot of stuff. We learned that Matt, while setting an alarm, is apt to not really adhering to the alarm. We also learned that he might drive 93 miles an hour from 2 hours away to make sure that he's making it to your place almost on time. We'll also learn that he can cook a rack of ribs inside 41 minutes from start to finish in a pit barrel. All things that were crazy to learn and for me to probe on. Things that I wanted to have you on to talk about were to answer some of the following things that he might have mentioned, which was, number one, there seemed to be some type of coup or collection of all of the other 14 cooks to say, hey, this Matt guy is not using the right fuel. He's cheating. Not only that, we should push for his dismissal. Let's find this Steve Ray. True or false?
That is false.
False.
What happened was I had two guys, two of my buddies, Perry and Pete, were my helpers. And one of the teams said to Pete, hey, the guy that came in late is not using the right charcoal. We all had to use the good charcoal in briquettes, which was furnished by the rep of the good charcoal company. Mm-hmm. So I went over to Matt, and that because it was Matt they were talking about, and it was only one team that said something to Pete, and of course a couple of the teams that spoke between them, but they weren't advocating for his dismissal. They just said, "Hey, now when Matt pulled in, I was standing right next to him, and I was watching the guys help him unload." And he picked up a bag of the good charcoal lump. Everybody else was using briquettes. He picked up a lump bag right in front of me. Now, you would have thought that I would have said something then. It didn't cross my mind. It was so inconsequential. And he had plenty of the good charcoal briquettes with him. So when I heard this, we had a discussion about emails, but Greg, I'm not one of those email evidence people. A lot of people keep email on their phone. Look here. Look here. I don't do that. I don't even look at email on my telephone. I can barely call up Facebook on my phone. So we went back to my little office area, and I said, "All right, well, Matt, here's an email that said where you and I were talking about you supplying the briquettes for the contest." And in the email, he said, "Oh, briquettes? I thought it was lump." I said, "No, it's briquettes." And that was, that was okay. And that was it. So one would suffice that was evidence enough that we're all going to cook. But so I said, what I'll do is I'll go ask all the teams. And if they mind that you're cooking with lump and not briquettes. I went to every of the 13 other teams. One guy didn't show up. And every one of them said, we don't care. It's not that big a deal. And they weren't advocating for his disqualification. They were just saying, hey, he's not using what we're all using, but we don't care. So that was maybe 20 minutes out of the total day. It was once everybody cleared him, it was, go ahead, Matt, you're golden. Everybody loves you. We're glad you're here. That's the number one thing is I'm glad he made it. So there's the charcoal controversy in a nutshell.
But if it's 20 minutes of the total day, like, why put a stipulation on what charcoal to have anyway? Why did it have to be just good charcoal briquettes? Why couldn't it be good charcoal brand? Or why couldn't it just be, it's got to be some type of charcoal in that cooker, and that's where the line in the sand is drawn?
Well, when you run a contest, you can do that. When I run my contest, I tell them what they can use. Okay, it's just that simple. It's just that simple. We're going to standardize it. Everybody's going to use the same charcoal, and that's what's going to kind of make this a unique contest. Now, remember, they had to cook a rib, and they had to put it on at 10 o'clock. They only got one baby back rib. That's all they got, and they had to cook it in 90 minutes. Start at 10. End at 11:30, have it sliced, have 5 ribs put in a box, and have it turned in by 11:30. So it was kind of a Food Network type contest, if you will, coupled with a barbecue contest. And those were just one of the things I said. A few years ago, I was going to do a steak contest, and I went out and bought 10 of the same exact grills. And I was going to do a steak contest. Everybody had to use the same grill and the same charcoal. But there things happened. I couldn't do it. But to me, that's just it kind of evens the playing field.
It seems like if nobody would have had a problem with charcoal, nobody would have said anything about it. Could I speculate that if Matt would have ended up winning this event, all hell would have broken loose and would have been like, well, this guy didn't even use the right charcoal and he should be disqualified or he should be knocked down a couple points?
No, because they all cleared him. If they had a bitch, that would have been too bad because they all said, we don't care. And if he had won it, it would have been a huge accomplishment because he was so late and he was so harried. And so, the lateness is what made the contest. Him pulling in, hot and throwing all the stuff out of his truck, and everybody helping him, get his little table together. That was what probably I think the most interesting part of the contest was. I'm thinking that I may incorporate that into the next contest. Have one person pick, and he has to come late, and see how he does.
What about Matt's contention that people thought that he was a ringer coming in? Obviously, we know at results he finished, at best mid-pack. But did you hear or did anybody approach you saying, hey, maybe it's not fair, this guy's a ringer coming in?
All right. I'm going to be real careful answering this. I believe that Matt believes that some people thought he was a ringer. That's how I'll answer that. I believe that Matt believes some people thought he was a ringer.
In other words, Matt loves him some him.
In other words, Matt is very confident in himself, and he doesn't depend on anybody else to wake up his ego. Let's say that.
All things considered, are you surprised that he was able to even turn in a rib that could get him mid-pack?
No. Matt knows how to. He knows how to cook. I mean, obviously he knows how to cook. And they had to, as soon as he got there, he texted me on the way and said, "Hey, can Michael? He met one of our buddies cooked next to him in Lebanon, up in the Smoke on the Shores, and met him, and they got to be kind of buddies. And he texted me and said, "Hey, can Michael start a basket of coal for me?" And I said, "No." I said, part of the deal is being here." And he goes, "Okay, 10-4." He was good with that. And you made me forget what I was going to say. I was looking at that picture. What'd you ask me?
I asked if you were surprised he could turn in an edible rib inside the time frame.
No, because they got the charcoal lit really quick, and he was in a pit barrel, and I know you can cook super hot and super fast on a pit barrel cooker, and probably the best barbecue vessel to bring to a rib contest like that, other than just a regular old kettle. And Matt could have he could have started that rib at 10 to 11, or 20 after 20 till 11, or no, 10 to 11, and he'd have been done.
Yeah.
I mean, he got that thing cooked fast. I mean, he got cooked fast. And you know what? I took a bite of his too after they turned in. I went to some of the tables, and it's pretty good rib. I got to hand it to him. It's pretty good. I liked it. I didn't check all of them, but it was good.
So how's this whole thing judged?
We had 4 guys from. We have a little internet show here in Chattanooga by these guys. It's called Chatted Up Sports. It's funny. They had one of their buddies invited them all over one day to see his new couch, and he lives here behind me. And he bought a new couch. He calls his buddies. You know those young guys are. He calls his buddies, come over and drink and sit on his new couch. So they're sitting on the couch, and they're all, their only thing they do is talk about sports and in college sports and stuff. And somebody got the great idea and said, "Hey, we ought to go on the internet and talk about this." So they did, and they've got a little studio set up, and like after the game on last night, they had instant reaction, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. But anyway, they were my judges, and I trained them on the chili. They were my chili judges back in February, and I trained them on the ribs. And then my other good friend, Jim Reynolds, who is the voice of the UTC Mocs, the NIT champions. He's a play-by-play guy. He's been there doing it for 45 years. He was the other judge. So we had 5. And we went over everything with them, and they did a great job in the chili, and they did a great job on the ribs too.
So what kind of rules are you giving them as far as judging the rib? Are you trying to mimic a KCBS type thing, or is it just general consensus?
No, I stole it from one of my favorite people, Mike McLeod. Execution, appearance, and taste. And I told him, what the standard was for each initial, and they had to judge it with a number, and 1 through 10. And I did allow them to use points if they wanted to, like 8.5 or 8.4, whatever they wanted to do. And we weighted the scores just like they do in World Food Championships. And it worked out great. It worked out really good. They did a good job. Real good.
You have more competitions planned for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I'd like to get at Brad's number. If he's with a good charcoal company, he might be somebody to talk to.
Who's Brad?
But Brad, the guy you just were talking to, the guy from he has a funny last name.
Oh yeah.
He said he was said he was an ambassador with the good charcoal company. What was funny? 2 days before the contest, Matt texted me and goes, "I can't get 15 bags of briquettes." I said, "What?" I said, "So I mean, there again, it's Matt." And I said, "Well," I said, Thankfully, I had it. I had ordered a pallet of each, and I had it at the store. I said, "Well, you just bring me 15 bags of a combination charcoal, briquettes, and lump, and I'll give them the 14 bags out of my stock," and that worked out great. And he made me whole, and that's all I was concerned about was getting reimbursed. And that was that's another thing. I thought maybe he should have known. But
did he tell you he was going to bring those bags, and then 2 days before said that he's going to be short?
Yeah, yeah, he couldn't. He couldn't gather them. I don't know. You don't know what he. But it was. But that's I pride myself on running good competitions, and that's one of the things I was prepared for. That I had everything. I try not to depend on anybody.
Yeah.
And when you're running these things, just depend on yourself and not anybody else. And that's not throwing shade on Matt. That's on anything that I do. I'm always ready for anything that they throw at me. I'm ready for.
From a business standpoint, looking at it as the owner of Owlsness Barbecue Supply, what does an event like this mean for the business that day? Is it an appreciable bump, or is it about every day?
Oh, yeah, because it brings so many people in. The chili contest we had a People's Choice function on that contest too with the judges. We had judges and a People's Choice, and the line was at the front door. And as people are waiting in line, they're grabbing bottles of rub and sauce. Hopefully they're paying for them all. You never know. But like this last time, we had a great day. We did over $1,000 in sales, and if I did $1,000 every day, that's all I need to do. And we did that. But it gets the community talking. When people come in and buy gas, they say, "What'd you have going on Saturday?" "I saw a bunch of cars here." I said, "Well, you should have stopped." They go, "Well," I said, "follow us on our Facebook page." "I will. I'd like to get in on that, or I would have liked to have tasted some of those ribs," because we had a lot of people that, of course, the families come with the guys that are competing. We had the food writer from the Times Free Press, our local paper. She was one of the competitors. I put her on a team. Lyric Lewin is her name. And she's going to do an article for a magazine that they've got coming out next month. So she had a great time. So it generates a lot of buzz. It generates a lot of interest in the community. They see something going on, and through the week they'll stop by and say, what was that? And they'll come in and like, "I've never been in this place. This is really cool." So it's every time I do one, it happens like that.
Steve, last question before I let you go, and appreciate the time here this evening. You are also a retailer aside from the ancillary stuff. You sell grills. Typically that's metal. Of course, tariffs are coming into play. What are you hearing from manufacturers, since you're a dealer from some pretty big outfits at this point? Are you hearing anything about you're going to be getting tariff surcharges or something along these lines?
I heard, let's see, today's Tuesday. I'm trying to think because I don't work on Mondays. Yesterday afternoon, I got a text from my sales rep at Palm Coast Sales saying that the Green Mountain Grills were going to have a price increase, and I was asking him, more importantly, were they going to have a sale before Memorial Day so I could maybe stock up on some grills, because we're getting low, but usually we stock up right before the busy season. He said, but no sales were coming. But he said that before. And they'd had a sale. And I got burned one time, and the last time I waited, and I got in on the sale. So you got to watch these guys. They're all, you salesmen are. Y'all are you just got to watch them.
I'm a director of sales. I'm not a salesman anymore.
Well, then you must have been really good at it because they made you in charge of everybody.
That's right. Now they all follow me.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Green Mountain had an increase. I mean, if he's got to pay more for it, I'm going to pay more for it. The customer's going to pay more for it. But what you worry about is where's that line of demarcation? Where is it? Where's the law of diminishing returns that no, I'm not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting on 10 or 12 grills you can't move. and that's a lot. I mean, that's a bunch of money. So you got to kind of weigh that. Am I going to order this many, or am I going to, order that many, or am I not going to order any and see what happens? And I'm not at that place yet because it's only April, but we'll see. We'll see.
Steve Ray is the owner at Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply. You can find him at owlsnestbbq.com. Also, the owner of the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil out there in Ooltewah, Tennessee. Steve, always appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet. And I want to say this, Greg, real quick. Matt, Osman, you are invited to any contest that we do. You are a great addition. Everybody likes you, and nobody wanted you. Greg, I've done probably 15 of these contests in my lifetime. I've never disqualified anybody, and we probably never will disqualify anybody.
Even if they're cheating?
Well, he wasn't cheating, but he was confused. We'll just say that.
Fair enough.
There's a big difference between being accused or being cheating and confused.
That's right. All right, Steve. Well, appreciate you coming on. Steve Ray, right there. Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. And good to hear that Matt is always invited to future contests, even if he is dabbling in potentially, reportedly, allegedly unsavory behavior at said competition. All right, let's go ahead and do one more read and one more piece of business, and we'll call it a night. Green Mountain Grills, the aforementioned, which may or may not be getting a price increase. Sounds like it will be. For 17 years, Green Mountain Grill has brought the smoke to the competition scene and the backyards all over the world. Their Venturi-style firebox delivers the cleanest 150-degree smoke in the pellet game. Their new redesigned 2025 Prime 2.0 grills blend the proven technology of the past, the technology of the future. Green Mountain Grill, the original innovator in all things Wi-Fi, and continues to give the user granular options to control your grill in any environment and from anywhere. Green Mountain Grill's also leading the pack in accessory creation, from their pizza attachment that delivers pizzas in 2 minutes to rotisseries to add on side burners. Check out the new 2.0 Green Mountain Grill at greenmountaingrills.com. That's greenmountaingrills.com. We are back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
We thank Steve Ray for joining us last segment. OwlsNestBBQ.com. Step in the world of McAuliffe Cigars. This segment brought to you by Each Blend is a chapter and a grand tale of craftsmanship and passion. The portfolio is a symphony of flavors, each note carefully composed to create a unforgettable Nicaraguan smoking experience. Again, McAuliffe Purple going to be released at PCA in New Orleans here shortly, and I will be getting my hands on the Herencia Habano and the McAuliffe A. So if you're looking for samples for either the Herencia Habano or the McAuliffe A, let me know. Not sure exactly what Vitola is going to be showing up in the mail. I did request either Robusto or Toro, which are traditionally the most popular Vitolas in any line. So if you're interested, shoot me an email and I'll put you in the wait list. So whenever I get my hands on those, I will send them out to you. And we continue to thank McAuliffe for their support of the show. All right, all the way back in the first hour, it was David Gafford, an abridged David Gafford, a Wi-Fi challenged David Gafford from the Barbecue Lab, taking time out of his vacation through a barbecue journey. They were in Memphis, not Las Vegas, Memphis, and it didn't work out there with the Pyramid. Appreciate him trying, nevertheless. We'll recycle him here in the next couple weeks and kind of refresh some of the topics that we were able to hit on, and then grab the other stuff that we didn't talk about or weren't able to talk about. I should say it that way. But thebarbecuelab.com is the website. And then after David, we had Robert Moss, robertfmoss.com, talking about the latest Michelin star guide as it is now landing in the South. We talked about the states that make up the South for this Michelin star guide evaluation. Some I agree with, some no. And then closing out the show here this evening, our pal Steve Ray from Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply. Also, Steve Ray's Midnight Oil there in the great city of Ottawa, Tennessee. Big show planned for you next week. We will already be in the third week of April, if you can believe it. So Wes Wright will be there, a quarterly guest of perhaps a Jess Pryles will be there, now that I'm thinking about it. Could be a Susie Bullock, but it could be a Jess Pryles. If it's Jess Pryles, remember she asked to be the host of Betwixt the Two at the close of the segment. We'll figure it all out. Plenty of guests, plenty of content, plenty of fun and frivolity. We'll see you back here. So, how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. And until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, it's your program host and proud U.S. American Greg Rempe saying, Shalom!
This is Dion Blumenrader with Big Hoss One Sauce, and you're listening to the best show on all things barbecue with my man, Greg Rempe.